Absolute Batman just keeps getting crazier. Scott Snyder has teased a couple new villains coming to Absolute Batman that are going to be absolutely insane.
He's in hell, Batman!
Hey Internet, I'm Chris, and this is the place on the internet where I talk about comics, movies, games, and things I'm generally passionate about. And you might as well call this a Absolute DC channel because I've made plenty of videos on Absolute Batman and the rest of the Absolute lineup. DC has done a great job with DC All In and Absolute and gaining excitement. I know I've been reading the books. It's been great making these videos and really connecting with other fans and hearing the response to these books because I've been loving them. It's been something I've been reading. I know a lot of my pull outside of DC has been dwindling, especially the stuff at Marvel. So it's been cool to have something to be excited about every week at the comic book shop, whether it be DC All In titles, Absolute. There's been some other stuff like in Marvel, you have Ultimates and then Ghost Machine and Transformers with the Energon universe. So there's a lot of great books out there right now. And I think some of the things that are happening in Absolute Batman with Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta have really sort of pushed the industry forward, despite some of the things like Diamond going bankrupt. I think there's some cool stuff going on. And Scott Snyder has confirmed some crazy things that are coming to Absolute Batman. In the first arc of Absolute Batman, you have 6 issues. It's called The Zoo. And it's been sort of like you've got an origin, you got sort of the origin of what like Gotham is, you've got teases of characters like Absolute Joker, we've had references to what Arkham is. It's like a prison island called Arkham, and we're going to learn more about that as the series goes on. But we know from solicitations and also teases from Scott Snyder that the next 2-issue arc, you're going to get Mr. Freeze. Now in Absolute Freeze, I didn't know what to expect. I kind of thought he would look like what he looked like in the Arkham games, which was huge and had a huge suit, or Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Batman and Robin movies. But I mean, I am completely surprised by his design. His design is creepy as hell. I don't know what to make of it. He looks like a monster, and you wonder if this is the first form of Freeze. And I hope that like the villains don't become these monster figures. I know Scott Snyder's really great with horror, and I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with Absolute Freeze. But I don't want it to be sort of this thing where it's like, okay, like we have a 2-issue arc, let's just get past Freeze, and it's just going to be this monster that he defeats and all that. It'll be interesting to see like characters come back, and not just like the Joker. Like I know the Joker is going to probably be multi-arc villain. We already seen him tease, and we know he's going to be involved in the Arc M stuff, and we know he's probably orchestrating a lot of the chaos in Gotham now with the party animals and Black Mass. So we know the Joker's gonna be crazy. Scott has told us that, and Absolute Freeze looks like that. But I just don't want it to be one of those things, like I said, where it's like characters are just, they look cool for like 2 seconds and then you forget about them, which was a problem with the original Ultimates line. You had a lot of characters like they'll have this like radical new design and it was cool for like an issue or two, and then there was no story behind it, so you never saw those characters again. And I hope that Absolute sort of strays away from that. And I think Scott is a much smarter writer than that. So like despite sort of my concerns, I think that what we're going to see with Absolute Freeze is going to be scary, horrific, but also tragic, and hopefully something that we'll see more of than just 2 issues, because Mr. Freeze, especially since Batman animated series, I think is one of those characters that has like a lot of latitude. You could do a lot of different things with him, and obviously he has a tragic past, so I wonder how that's going to look in the Absolute universe. Are they going to flip that origin on the side where he's more less redeemable, and again he's a monster, so it's easy to kind of like disregard him? But in this 2-issue arc, after those first 6 issues, Marcus Martin working on art, so it's going to be a little different than Nick Dragotta. And hopefully it gives Dragotta some time to catch up, and then we'll see the arc after that, which will probably feature the Joker. And then also Scott Snyder has teased a couple other characters, obviously through Twitter, Blue Sky, and in interviews. We know we're going to get Absolute Bane, who's probably going to be bigger than Absolute Batman, which is crazy when you think about it. Then he also teased Absolute Scarecrow, which he wants to make very, very scary. Who knows what that means, considering that some iterations of the Scarecrow are crazy, especially like when you look at like the Arkham games where like half his face is gone and he has like the Freddy Krueger glove with like needles that inject his fear toxin. So I wonder what that's going to look like. Hugo Strange has also been teased. When you have Arkham, like, you know, Hugo Strange is not too far away. Also, Deathstroke is going to be really tied into Alfred's story. And I kind of knew that, like, when the preview art first released of Absolute Batman and we saw those early designs of Dragota's Alfred, I kind of was like, I thought, like, if I didn't see the name and read the articles, I thought, like, oh, like, Deathstroke is going to be a part of, like, is this Deathstroke before he lost his eye or something like that? But it actually was Alfred. So it'll be interesting to see what Deathstroke looks like in this world and get closer and closer to Deathstroke not being a Teen Titans villain and is just a Batman villain and a DC villain at this point, because he is not in Teen Titans at all anymore. And, you know, occasionally he'll go up against Nightwing and they'll have some history, but it's clear, like, DC is like, hey, Deathstroke is a Batman villain and we're going to make him that way. I'm really intrigued to see what Deathstroke will look like. And again, I love this book. Every issue's been sort of like amazing. And I think Scott, his sort of ethos when it came to this Absolute line was taking superhero books and taking it to the next level and dialing to 11. And like, it was easy to get concerned and be like, okay, I even made a video like, hey, is this going to be like Heroes Reborn? Even though I was excited about it. But it's clear each book really has some radical ideas and it's doing really fun stuff and challenging who these characters are and taking them in new directions. And also, it's reflecting in the sales. Absolute Batman is huge on the sales chart. Multiple issues have gone into multiple printings. I'm sure comic book shops love that, especially in these hard times with Diamond. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of bad things going on in the industry, but I think Absolute Batman has been sort of a bright spot in what's been going on in the comic industry. And I've been loving the book. I'm excited to see what the Rogues Gallery looks like. We've gotten teases, like I said, through Scott, but what's cool is this is a great, like, art book. It's almost like reading Spawn or like a Jason Fabak book, you know, like you're reading it and you're like, the story's great, but like seeing the designs. And what's cool too is that even though Nick Dragota has taken, you know, they already had one issue where they had a fill-in artist and you have these 2 issues coming up. Like, they've really done a great job of selecting artists that are continue sort of like having that character design and not make it doesn't feel like you're getting, like, there's times where, like, you read a comic book and you get a guest artist and you're like, did you just call this person at the last minute? The editor even, like, look at the original artist and be like, hey, how can we find someone that could really, you know, translate this visual language and make sure that readers stay engaged with the book? It's just like, oh, like, who's at the top of, like, my, you know, my speed dial so I could just call them and see if they, you know, have availability. And Absolute Batman hasn't been doing that. And I hope they keep that momentum, because Scott Snyder has been knocking it out of the park with every issue. And I'm excited for what's to come and to see what these characters are like. Mr. Freeze is scary, and again, like, I love Scott Snyder's horror stuff. If you haven't read Night of the Ghoul, fix that. And obviously it's been infused in his Batman books. Like, you have Black Mirror and Court of the Owls had some horrific elements. So I think he really plays to his strengths with this, and it will build out what Gotham in the Absolute universe looks like. And hopefully it'll make sense when Batman, eventually when he crosses over with the rest of the Absolute universe. Now, what do you guys think? Are you excited to see the rest of the Absolute Batman Rogues Gallery? I know I am. Let me know. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Peace.